easement is a non-possessory right to use a person's property or a section of a person's property for a specific use or purpose. Easements could be occupied by multiple utilities. PWC, we are water, sanitary, sewer, and electric, but there may also be utilities within that same easement owned by the cable company or the telephone company or the gas company. PWC has the right to enter their right-of-way or easement, and the purpose for that is to be able to inspect and repair the utilities that we install. Our easements follow property lines, or typically along the rear property line or side or along the roadway. A right-of-way is different from an easement, although they're often used interchangeably. A right-of-way is referred to more as a corridor, such as a road right-of-way or a railroad right-of-way. It's very important to keep the right-of-ways clear to PWC because our service crews have to get to those utilities to do repairs, oftentimes emergency repairs, and oftentimes in weather conditions that are very detrimental. We are also mandated by the state to keep our right-of-ways clear and our sewer lines and manholes accessible and the power lines and utility poles accessible so that we can repair those in a quick manner in a time that there's a major outage or a storm event. Physically on the ground, it's often difficult to determine where the right-of-way ends and where your actually property line begins. Typically along the roadways, the telephone boxes and the cabinets that are on the corners usually, that's usually the line site. If you can see yours and then the next box in line and the next box in line, that's typically the edge of the right-of-way. Utility poles are typically set right on the right-of-way or a foot inside, and our utility cabinets are often set 1 foot outside the right-of-way so that we don't obstruct the road right-of-way itself. It's actually very important for a property owner to know where easements lie on their property or cross, because permanent structures are not allowed within a utility easement. And if someone wants to build an addition to their home, install a pool, a deck, or porch, they want to be sure that they're not encroaching within the easement. If PWC discovers an obstruction to our easement, then we will notify that property owner and advise them that the structure needs to be removed and try to make arrangements for that to assist them in that area. It's actually the responsibility of the homeowner to remove the obstruction, but PWC will work with the homeowner in removing that obstruction. If we have to go in and do repairs to our utilities, residential fencing that we may have to take down, we would install back, but any permanent structure we would not place back into the easement. Residential fencing is typically not a problem for us, but fencing with the wrought iron, with the brick gate, the brick columns, those types of things can be problematic. Trees, flowers, and shrubs, we do not replace those. We do repair the lawn area if there's an established lawn, and we do clean up any debris that we may leave behind. We get numerous calls from PWC directly to our right-of-way department to inquire if there are easements on a person's property, and we would be happy to do our research, and if we have an easement that we can find record of, then we will advise the owner. The overhead utilities is important as well to know that there's easements for power lines. If you front a road or a street, then you do have a right-of-way across your front yard. It may be even if it's a private street. So there's a right-of-way for the street. The utility right-of-ways is unknown. Oftentimes when the property is, the developer develops an area, they'll reserve easements along the side yard or the rear yard, sometimes even the front yard, for utilities, because every development needs utilities. And so there has to be room set aside for those utilities to be installed. In the property that I own, you have the street in the back of the curb, but the right-of-way for that street extends actually beyond the pavement, typically another 8 to 10 feet. It can vary. So even though I maintain that property, I have grass and I cut, and I keep it maintained, it really is actually a part of the street or road right-of-way. And the same with the easements. There may be an easement on my property along the side yard or rear yard, and I do continue to maintain that easement, although the utility company has the right to come in and occupy that to do repairs and or inspections. It's important for the property owner to understand that the reason PWC has easements, and it's important to keep the trees and obstructions out of our utility easements, is really for their benefit, because PWC is very proactive in maintaining our utilities so that we don't have major outages, or we can keep repairs to a minimum and continue service to our customers who are very important to PWC.